wealthy. A lot of money changed hands.
But Anna's dollars had not solved the cash flow problems at Wolseley Hall. As well as selling the contents of his house, Sir Charles, like many other aristocrats, was forced to dispose of yet more land. Just as land was no longer always profitable, so it became the source of increasing political trouble for the British aristocracy. Nowhere was the land question more acute than in Ireland, where many English aristocrats owned big estates. The Duke of Devonshire's Irish home, Lismore Castle, was in County Waterford. He and his fellow Irish landowners were now the targets of rural unrest. When Viscount Montmorris was murdered in 1880 during the so-called Land War, all Irish landowners felt threatened. Sir Jocelyn Gore Booth, owner of Lissadell in County Sligo.
Well, at last I've succeeded in opening the front door. This is where the carriages used to arrive. I've always been intrigued by the way in which this porch was built. And if you look up at the windows, which after all are, 8 feet above ground level at the bottom, they still have these substantial iron bars. I would imagine put there to make sure that if there wasn't a difficulty locally, it wasn't that easy to get into the house. And the doors themselves, which, as you can see, are considerable height, I have no idea what it is, 20 feet, that sort of thing, they would have been closed at night, both sides. And these massive bolts would have been dropped to make sure they didn't blow open. And then in addition to the bolts, and I'm not going to try this, I'm afraid, because they no longer work, these vast wooden beams would have been lifted across the doors to secure them there. So there really was no question of getting in once the doors were shut and barred. And I suppose, just in case somebody got this far who wasn't regarded as a desirable guest or whatever, there was a little spy hole there, and I imagine a porter or somebody was sitting in the cubicle behind it, and he would look out and, if necessary, open the little window and ask what your business was.
Lissadell is one of the most romantic of Irish country houses. It was the childhood home of the nationalist heroine Constance Gore Booth, and Yeats was a regular houseguest. During the Land War, the butler at Lissadell was Thomas Kilgallen. In his memoirs, he detailed the precautions the family took against attack.
There were rumours of the Fenians rising at this time. There were great preparations in the house for their reception. Iron plates were fitted on lower bedroom shutters, and here they are to this day. Old guns and rifles carefully examined and loaded. Hand grenades, pistols, and swords seen to. The bullet moulds taken out, and bullets made for each of the different rifles. Extra powder and shot ordered. All the rifles and guns were muzzle loaders. I was kept busy making bullets in the gun room. Nothing came of it.
There were about 1,000 tenants on the Lissadell estate. The average holding was a mere 30 acres. The famine had hit Sligo particularly hard, and although Sir Robert Gore Booth was not among the toughest of Irish landlords, many of his tenants still lived in desperate poverty.
He had an unpopular agent at one point, but as I'm always saying to my own agent, it's part of the job of being the agent to be the Mr. Nasty, if you like. I think he was always on good terms with people who lived here, but being a powerful man and liking to have his own way, he obviously had some enemies.
During the Land War, any big house was a likely target. At Lissadell, they received one of the so-called Captain Moonlight letters, which were sent as a threat to many Irish landlords.
My dear Lucifer, I must inform you that you have the poorest tenants in Ireland, and all owing to your bad treatment. But do you see, bad? The time has come that, by God, we don't care for man or the devil, is that you are stuck in Lizardell like the devil in hell. But I'll meet you like Parson Bell. On the reverse side of the sheet of paper was a sketch of a coffin marked died 1882, and the words Captain Moonlight printed in large letters. That must have sent a shiver down his spine, I suppose.
The biggest shock for the British establishment came with the Phoenix Park murders in 1882. Frederick Cavendish, Lord Hartington's younger brother, was set upon and killed a few hours after he arrived in Dublin to be the new Chief Secretary. Ireland now dominated British politics. The painting in the Lords actually depicts the famous Home Rule debate in 1893. It was in this debate that the Liberal peers, led by Lord Hartington, joined forces with the Tories under their leader, Lord Salisbury, and defeated Home Rule.
He was wrong over Home Rule. He was wrong for perfectly good reason, which was that he thought that Ireland, separate from the United Kingdom, would suffer materially, and I think that's probably true to say that it has done. I mean, but man doesn't live by bread alone, and he didn't see the strength of nationalism.
Irish landowners were saved from Home Rule, but over the next 10 years a series of new laws encouraged them to sell land to their tenants. At Lissadell, the Gore Booths eventually reduced their estate from 30,000 to 3,000 acres. Sir Henry Gore Booth, son of Sir Robert, devoted less time than his father to public affairs and estate management, and concentrated instead on his own private obsession, travel and exploration. With his butler Kilgallen as steward, Sir Henry made a series of Arctic voyages, hunting whales and bears as he went.
I think it might be interesting to describe the incident of the bear, because obviously in the Arctic you come across bears quite often, and on one occasion my great-grandfather, who was quite a keen shot, got a bear in his sights, pulled the trigger of his rifle, and the trigger didn't do what it should. The rifle just clicked, and the bear was obviously fairly close. And the story is that Kilgallen, faithful to the last, got hold of another rifle, shot the thing between the eyes. Anyway, here is the bear, which was brought back to Lissadell and stuffed. It's been given some cosmetic treatment recently. The feet had fallen off when it was used by my father and his brothers and sisters to negotiate their bicycles around the hall. But there is the bear, and we're proud to have him.
Travel to exotic locations was fashionable among Victorian aristocrats. Egypt was a popular destination